Hello again, I'm Matthew from thewetpen.com, and when I left you in the previous video, I had just visited the Touch and Flow shop in the Takashimaya department store and was about to head into Tokyo's upscale Ginza district. Last year, I visited the amazing Ginza Itoya store and its dozen or so stories of stationery, and I found a good variety of exclusive inks, but this year there was a large display of the Itoya exclusive Sailor Disney inks, but these didn't really interest me, and I couldn't find any other exclusives. Even the Itoya Romeo cocktail inks were absent this year, but I admit I didn't have time to search every floor. I did see this set of 3 Mishima inks, which are interesting because Mishima is a food company in Japan that makes seasonings for rice, and they inspired these colors. These inks were not exclusive to Itoya though. I found them all over Japan. But I would have gotten one anyway if the colors had really grabbed me, but they didn't. And it was too early in the trip to start breaking my rules. So I kept walking a few blocks south and a couple more west to the Ancora shop that I somehow missed on my last trip. This place is actually really cool. In addition to a nice selection of notebooks and stationery, they have a big display of Sailor vase bottles above an ink bar, where they occasionally have an ink master come in and mix personalized inks for you. But that takes more planning ahead than I had done. They also had this section at the front of the store where you could build your own pen from what appeared to be Sailor pen parts. They had different colored bodies and sections and caps and clips and nibs. You can assemble them all however you like, and it costs 4,400 yen, currently about 28 US dollars. When I started looking for their exclusive inks, I kept finding these ones that were marked not for sale, but I did find their in-house Sailor line of inks in 20 milliliter bottles up front. These were pretty standard colors, so I just chose this navy because I liked the Mount Fuji label, my first blue ink of the trip. And I went to check out, and the woman looked at my ink and said something like, "Don't you want our special ink?" And I said, "What ink is that?" And she pointed to a pedestal right behind me with a spotlight on it. I must have walked past it a dozen times. But this is the ink. It looks like maybe a lavender color from the sample, and you can see there's a prominent full moon on the label as well. And if you translate the sign, it says, "Jugoya ink is available only at the Ginza main store during the 3 days of the full moon each month." That's an even more exclusive ink than I was expecting, so of course I got it. It turns out that it really pays to visit the Ancora website. Here you can see that they just released this 3rd anniversary limited edition ink in a vase bottle a couple of weeks ago. Anyway, let's see what these inks look like, starting with the navy. Okay, this is not exactly what I expected from an ink called navy. This seems like a nice medium blue. When it's dry, the ink on the CD notebook paper looks almost turquoise. And on the other 3, there's some moderately heavy sheen that's more red than the typical magenta that we see. Very nice. Not a ton on the color ring, but quite a bit of sheen on the Iroful and on the Midori. And now, the Jugoya. Incidentally, Jugoya means moon viewing, literally, but it also refers to a festival in the autumn celebrating the harvest moon. Okay, this one is a low saturation purpley color, as I expected, But as it dries, it's actually a bit more complex than that. Where the ink is heavy, we get a strong light blue outline. It's pretty visible on all of the papers, but it's particularly strong on the Midori, I think. I made a quick writing sample of this one with a stub nib to see if any of that variation would show up when writing with a fountain pen, but I didn't really see any on the Cosmoware Snow. But there was some nice shading more generally. After Ancora, I went back to Tokyo Station and met up with Chris to take a train out of the city to the north. My plan had been to visit the Mita Sanshodo shop and see their gorgeous cut glass bottles, but it was Sunday and they were closed. So we headed towards Saitama and Omiya Station, where I left Chris to explore while I took a bus out to the suburbs and found this place. Office Vendor, with the creative spelling. From the name, you can probably guess that this isn't like the other shops that I've been to. This one is more like a Staples or Office Depot in the US, but they still have a nice little collection of inks. Kuretake, Sailor, Pilot, and down at the very bottom of this display, a single bottle of an exclusive ink. As I was trying to figure out what this ink was, a friendly woman from the store came over to try to talk to me, but the language barrier was absolute. A few moments later, she returned and handed me this flyer. I initially thought that the store clerk was this woman, one of the two hosts of a radio program about stationery in Japan, which is simulcast on the internet. The woman here on the right is this woman, Naomi. When I chatted with Naomi later online, I learned that the clerk in the store was actually just a friend of hers. Anyway, they also produce a stationery podcast that's on Spotify if you happen to understand Japanese.
どうぞ。
タコナオ文具情報室のお話。
もうスラスラ言えるようになりましたね。
でもこのタイトルつまんない前回言ってなかったっけ？
なんか言ったね。
I'll post some links below to their website if you want to find their Spotify link or links to any of their other information. But back to the ink. Inside the box for this ink is a little card with some useful information. This bottle of ink celebrates the first anniversary of Naomi's radio show, and it's inspired by her experiences with her college photography club and sepia-toned photographs. But you can see down here, the date is from 2021, so there might not be many bottles of this ink left. This was certainly the last one in the store. So I thought that the Moon ink bottle from Ancora was exclusive, but this one is really the kind of thing I was searching for. Not just an exclusive at the Office Vendor chain, but only at this particular branch of Office Vendor, and once this batch is gone, that's it. So let's see what this ink looks like. Okay. This is not the color that comes to mind when I think of sepia, but it's a really nice medium dark brown, a bit on the cool side. When it's dry, we can see that it's not too dark to produce a little bit of shading, and although there's not much sheen on the coloring or the CD notebook paper, there's some silvery green sheen on the Iroful and some vibrant green sheen on the Midori. That's awesome. Anyway, after I got this ink, I went out to stand in the rain for a bit and wait for my bus, and then we headed back down to Tokyo so that the next morning we could start the long journey down to Nagasaki. That was where things really started to get interesting for me, and it's where I'll pick up again in the next video in this series, but I'm going to interrupt the series and show you one of my new pens before that. So if you're interested in seeing pens or the rest of this Japanese video series, I hope that you'll subscribe to my channel if you're not already, and I'll see you all back here again soon with another new video. Stay safe out there, everyone.